What's up, y'all? It is good to be back with Two Black. Unfortunately, we are not back under the best of circumstances. We are coming to you to give a brief sort of synopsis of something that's going on that affects a mutual friend, comrade, podcaster of ours, Momodou Taal, who is currently a doctoral student in Africana Studies at Cornell University. Those of you who have followed us may remember that we had Momodou on our podcast, LSR, last season, talking to us about his involvement with the encampments at Cornell. And I also believe that Two Black, you had Momodou on sometime last year as well. So
Like
I
just a
think that,
few weeks ago, actually. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So those of you who watch us should be familiar with who Momodou is as a person. We are coming because, Charisse and I had the opportunity to spend this past weekend together at a conference. As I was coming back to Boston, I literally landed in Boston and got a message from Charisse about the fact that Momodou was facing suspension and potential deportation as a result of recent involvement in a pro-Palestinian demonstration on Cornell's campus. Now, those of you who remember when he came on last season, he talked to us. He had some pending disciplinary charges at the time. As far as we understand, this is not connected in any direct way to the charges that were alleged against Momodou last semester, many of which were dropped, some of which are still pending. But because there has been an issue sort of with due process with Cornell, nothing is actually directly pending. Momodou had been reinstated, his grades had been submitted, and he was actually on the books teaching a class this semester. Both I and Two Black were supposed to guest lecture in his class this semester. And from all that he reported to me, things were going well in terms of the class. I then reached out to Momodou after getting the news from Charisse, and he gave me a little bit more information. So what Momodou told me was that there was a demonstration that happened on campus last week, I think maybe on the 19th, but don't quote me on that, that he briefly spoke at. And he had left the demonstration to go, I think, pick up his computer or something that he had left somewhere nearby. As he was leaving to go get his things, he ran into a campus police officer, security officer that he had had a previous interaction with. As far as we know, there are no pending disciplinary actions related to this particular protest at the moment. There was nothing that Momodou was directly accused of. There's been no direct evidence presented to him about what he has done. But what Momodou told me was that that particular police officer that he had had that run-in with reached out to him directly to tell him that he had reported him to the university, and that within less than 24 hours, the university temporarily suspended him, which then means that because of the temporary suspension, he was removed from class, so he's no longer teaching class. But also because of the temporary suspension, because Momodou is a UK citizen, also Gambian, he was threatened with because he is not now in good standing with the university, and because he's in the US on a student visa, that then threatens his student visa, and that they told him that they would then report that information to immigration. If that information were to be reported to immigration, then he would have between 24 and 48 hours to leave the country. Um, and so as far as we know, there has been no due process. He has been asked, he has asked to be presented with what he is charged with. That is not clear. He is asked to be presented with whatever evidence is being used against him. That is also not clear. So at this point, it is clear that this is just sort of a direct retaliation against Momodou as an individual, but also trying to make an example out of Momodou because of his previous involvement with pro-Palestinian demonstrations on campus. And I think I also, if I'm not mistaken, the administration, there's been some changes in administration at Cornell over the course of the summer. And so they have been moving to make more and more examples out of the students who have been involved in any kind of pro-Palestinian demonstrations. And so what we wanted to do tonight was, one, bring that information to those of you all who are familiar with us and familiar with Momodou, but also provide a little bit more context for what that means means in terms of moving forward, in the terms of the states of repression that we are facing as people in this country, as Black people, as students, as academics, as intellectuals, as people who are sort of in the larger kind of, podcast sphere. And so I'm going to turn it over to CBS to give us a little bit more context.
Yeah, y'all. So what we definitely need to do is understand this repression of Momodou alongside, hey girl, this is Sankara, alongside the repression of the Uhu 3, as well as the recent suspension of African Stream from all social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and now just as of a few hours ago, TikTok as well. This is very, very important because what it shows is that this is not only a disciplining of pro-Palestine activism, it is also part of, I have this whole framework of Black Scare, Red Scare, but it's very telling that those who are facing outsized repression alongside Palestinians and our Arab comrades and brothers and sisters is Black people. It is I don't think it's any coincidence that Momodou is a Black student, a pan-Africanist, an anti-imperialist who is being targeted, and the fact that his immigration status makes him particularly vulnerable. If you are familiar with Claudia Jones, with CLR James, with Ferdinand Smith, there's a long history of folks who are considered foreign, right? Not only because of their immigration status, but also because of their radical ideas being targeted and being attacked. And so this is not just about Momodou as a student protester, but as he is just, part of this larger, more intensified repression of people who are standing up against all aspects of US imperialism, of settler colonialism, of war-intensified genocide, and then of exercising our actual right to free speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, freedom of association, all of these things that are abrogated when you have a particular radical politic. And so if you think that this doesn't affect you because you're not a student, or because you don't go to protests, or because you weren't in the encampments, or because you're not a member of this or that organization, you are incorrect, right? As the saying goes, if they come for you in the morning, they will come for everybody else in the evening. And it's evening, right? So we need to stand alongside Momodou, just as we would we need to stand alongside any of our individuals, institutions, and organizations who are taking a stand right now. So, Two Black will add more context in terms of what Momodou means to us as part of our Black radical ecosystem, and also, related to some of the other bullshit that's going on right now. Like, because as we speak, Marcellus Williams has been executed despite around the clock organization from many organizations, many activists who are from abolitionists to people who are just for the release of political prisoners. All of these things are connected, and as we have more and more fronts on which to struggle, there will be more and more intensified oppression. And so this is a really, really important issue.
Thanks for that. And, yeah, Momodou is one. I mean, just to speak about him as a person, I think within the podcast space, and this is not a knock on people, what I'm about to say, but he's someone who isn't just like making podcasts that I think are excellent to themselves. He's also very active, right? So he's not, people like to say we're just talking or whatever. Like, he's not one of those people. I mean, he hasn't just been going to those protests and rallies at Cornell. He's been one of the leaders, making sure that they stay tight, and also coordinating with other university or other students at universities, I should say, in terms of like tightening up the message to make sure it doesn't become too liberal or too watered down, making sure the demands are on point. Like, this is something that he's been doing. And even in this case, I don't even think he likes that this becomes about him in some sense, because he doesn't really like that effect. Like, he wants to continually make it about the Palestinians and what they're experiencing and their struggle. He never, seeks the spotlight in that way. And even when you talk to him, even as of now, he's not really thinking about this as himself. He's seeing how this is hurting their struggle. And, so we have to fight not just for him as an individual, because we might like him or we might listen to his show, but because, this kind of repression, sends a message across the world. This kind of repression, just is a means to try to justify what's happening in Palestine, now what's happening in Lebanon, right? Like this is a means to do all those things. So we want to definitely, respect and stand up for him as an individual because he deserves that, but we're also standing up for a much broader struggle, right? And we gotta think about it as that, because like, yeah, we're fighting on, like you said, Dr. CBS, we're fighting on multiple fronts here. Like as we're recording, like you said, a man is being executed in Missouri, Marcellus Khalifa Williams, who all evidence shows was innocent, and to the point that even members of the state, like the prosecutor over that county, even was pushing to get him released. So this is not, but Missouri still moved forward with it, and the Supreme Court just denied it. So, we have a lot of fronts we're gonna have to fight on. And one thing we cannot allow is just them just snatching up our people and us not doing anything about it. That just can't be acceptable. So yeah.
And one thing I think that we just one more piece of information to add context, right? Because we also saw this weekend a mass coordinated, basically state-sanctioned terrorist attack in Lebanon, right?
Mhm.
And to the dropping of tactical nuclear bombs, right, on people in Lebanon. And I think that what we're seeing at this moment is the US and Israel like acting like a hurt animal in a corner, and they are becoming more and more dangerous,
Mhm.
even as public opinion is turning towards them, right? And so that's also why I think this particular instance, both about Momodou as a person, as an individual, but in terms of what it represents, is really important. And so as we share this video, we will also share a link to a petition that is being circulated in support of Momodou. We've been circulating it all day, and a few people have asked, like, because the language of the petition looks like it's only for Cornell students, but I just want to assure people that we are asking people, whether you have a relationship to Cornell or not, to sign the petition to support it. And as far as I know, I think CBS had a brief update right before we came on that it does seem that folks signing the petition is helping put pressure on administration. I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, so on the petition, there's a question that asks, what is your affiliation with Cornell? There is a bubble that says other. You can just type other and put NA, like no affiliation, and then you can decide if you want to be anonymous, if you just want your initials, or if you want your full name to be shown. But the update was from a member of Momodou's committee, who said that, right, that the ultimate sort of go ahead, if you will, the direct language. So the the completion of withdrawal, which would trigger his deportation, has not been sent just yet. So please keep calling, keep signing the petition, keep boosting Momodou's posts on social media, and alongside that, tighten up. Keep going back to your collectives that are organizing. Be clear about what your strategies are when these sorts of repression, when this sort of repression is ultimately going to rear its ugly head, and keep going. Like, do not let this scare you. Do not let this stop. However you are participating in this movement, or whatever movement you're a part of, don't let this stop you. Do not let these administrations cow us into cowardice. And alongside this is a Democratic administration. So everybody who's talking about fascism is to come, or how much worse things could be under Trump, pay attention now, right? People are getting charged with RICO, domestic terrorism. People are getting suspended and expelled and deported now, right? People are being beaten by the police now, subjected to legal and illegal surveillance now. So put this situation alongside all these other forms of repression into context, to take seriously the moment that we're in now. As George Jackson said, fascism is already here. So let's be clear and let's be serious, and not let whatever misleaders tell us that we have to vote for the quote unquote lesser evil, or that there's more space that will be opened up for radical folks under a Democratic administration or a Democrat administration. We know that this is not the case. People who are on the ground know that this is not the case.
As we share this on social media, there is a petition. It's a Google Doc that's titled "We Demand the Reinstatement of Momodou Taal." So we will share that. It has already been shared on our individual pages, but we will share that along with this video that we are sharing. And so keep up the good fight.
Yeah,
hand
write
out
down the
my
show notes.
booklets.
All right, peace, y'all.